Hi everyone, Sue Matsuki for Nightlife Exchange, and I have another Sue's Muse for you today. It's kind of a bonus Sue's Muse because I wanted to get this information out there because it's coming up fairly quickly. Please welcome two muses today, brother and sister act, Dana and Drew Aber. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to have you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so
So
much, Sue.
So, Dana, you and I know each other from singing on the circuit with Jerry Geddes' group and everything. And this woman has a voice from the heavens. I'm just going to say that. I always tell her every time I hear her sing, how much talent do you need, to not be on starring shows on Broadway and everything. You just recently did Urban Stages with us. That was so much fun to have the crew together. But now you are presenting as a playwright, and I'm so excited about this. This is a whole other color for you. So I want to talk about your project that Drew is the star of, and it's called Save Slash Reload. And it's kind of a more serious look at kind of gamer obsession. Is that true?
Yes, and all kinds of obsession. I feel like anxiety is itself a kind of obsession, right? We get stuck on something and then we flip on it over and over and over again. So my brother saw my first piece of writing, Baggage at the Door, which was a one-person musical that I crafted for myself on my own kind of mental health Piccadillys. And that had a successful off-Broadway run last fall. But in the pandemic, when we were all sitting around watching whatever we could to stay interested in life, my brother saw it and an old version of Baggage at the Door. And we were kind of talking as a family, and it just kind of came up like, hey, this is really cool how you handled the mental health stuff for
Hmm.
yourself in a theatrical vehicle. Um, Maybe you want to think about something for me or something. And I was like, oh crap, yes, of course, that's cool, and then he and I started to talk about what might that be and collaborating on and him sharing, about what was on offer to talk
So
about
was
in
this
this play.
somewhat semi-autographic, bio-autographical, Drew? Was there a gamer issue in your life? Were you committed too much to the computer or
Well, there's both a gamer issue and a gamer solution at the same time.
great?
I do spend a lot of time, immersing myself in those stories and narratives. I just appreciate story and narrative, and I find the active being part of it. The game aspect is a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then you start going through these stories and start relating these wild narratives that the games create, and start finding how you relate to those things and how you don't relate. You get to choose choices in there that you don't normally do. um you get to kind of find out more about yourself, but then how far can you go? How far can you go inside one of those before it gets to be
And then how do you live with those choices too, which I would imagine was an interesting psychological look at the choices that you make within that safe place to make those choices, but
right?
still living with them afterwards, even in a game situation. Was that part of the psychology when you were writing, Dana?
Yes, actually, truly. I mean, it is from Drew's life experience. This again, this vessel, this of a theatrical vehicle. So it is written on his specs, right? And so this kind of there was even an idea to do a choose your own adventure type style because the choice making in these RPG, these role playing games, that's the whole bit. It's like every choice leads it's lifelike. It is designed to be lifelike, to experience, to step into the character and navigate. And so in the crafting of this piece, Save Reload, it was very much about how do we as a writing team build a vehicle that allows for the choice making, and then as you said, the ramifications of those choices, and we started to blur the line between the game and the
Mm,
reality because time gets real funny in those games because
yeah.
they have their own timeline, and sometimes they're like day to night and you see 24-hour cycles, and sometimes they speed up, but then as a human being in our reality, that's hours on the clock maybe. So
Mhm.
yeah, completely.
I mean, I think we've all, probably everyone out there watching this has all been played games on their phone and realized that 2 or 3 hours have passed and you're like, holy, that's just time lost in my life and you don't even realize it to some extent. Is this an interactive play? Are there choices that the audience makes, or they just watch the choices that you're making, Drew? How is the play playing out that way?
There is some light asking of the audience for things. It's not heavily set in there, but yeah, occasionally we dip into that just to kind of color
How
it
long
that
a
way.
piece is it? Is it a 1 hour, 90 minute?
It's about
Uh
75.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because that might be interesting. I mean, if you, I would imagine that the dream would be someone to see this and want to kind of produce it another theater setting. I mean, that's why, this is part, by the way, of the New York Theater Winter Festival, which is an amazing program. All the shows are great there. And at the bottom of this interview, I'll have all the links to direct sales and the dates, which January 28th at 9, January 29 at 6:30, and February 1st at 4:30, which is why I'm making this a bonus interview so that you guys can go get tickets to see this because it sounds very exciting. But what's interesting to me is the aspect of maybe if you bring it to a bigger theater or something, that being able as an actor to play out the different scenarios if, say, the audience chose one thing versus another or something. That might be kind of cool too. But I can't wait to see this. This sounds amazing. I want to go back a little bit. We'll come back to talk about the play a little bit more, but I want to go back and find out about the two of you. You're both multi-talented. I know, Drew, you are actually also a singer and have a delicious voice, which I have not heard yet, which I can't wait to hear. This is not a musical, by the way. But tell us how, as two little kids, how were you brought up and why was music such a part of your background and your life? She's
It
laughing.
started with Dana. It definitely started with her.
I like to say our parents have no idea. The short answer is we just got lucky. We were raised in a home full of music, yes, but it's not, we just got gifts. We just literally had got gifts, and mine showed up first and early. And I was pretty clear. My folks, Drew, say that I looked at the television one day and was like, I want to be there. And they took me to see, a tour, a Broadway tour in Chicago where we were living at the time. And I said, I want to be up there. I was just like very little and very direct about what I wanted. And then luckily I got given these gifts, which our parents nurtured and found avenues for. And then Drew was coming to rehearsals for things that I was doing and was, horsing around like a little kid and son of a gun. He too had interesting gifts to offer. And it was very obvious and very apparent. And everyone went, crap, they can both do whatever. But I guess, and tell me, Drew, if I'm over speaking on this, but I started by being very comfortable as myself, like playing it as myself. And Drew's first gift showed up by inhabiting different characters as opposed to being himself. Like I played Eve in the Diary of Adam and Eve as myself at 14, very young, very youthful, very ready to go. And Drew played a blue camel for his first role.
Because why not?
Yes, yeah.
In Raggedy Ann and Andy. But then as our careers have grown, they've actually paralleled more than in the beginning when we were kids.
Mhm. And Drew, when did you know that you had the bug? At what age was it that, like, Dana making the decision, like, oh, that's what I want to do? When did that strike you?
So it specifically hit me. It was very quick. She had an audition. My mother was also going to audition for this play. It was basically down the street. So it was close. So, it was like going to be something that they were going to do over the summer, and they couldn't leave me home alone. So they dragged me along. I auditioned. I got Louis in King and I, which is one of the like lead kid roles.
Just got it. Yeah.
And I was really mad at my mom because I was like, you ruined my summer. I'm not going to have any time to have any fun with my friends.
Oh, poor
And then,
Drew.
I know.
yeah, second rehearsal, I was learning all the songs, all the lines, all the dances, and doing them backstage. And 9 years old, and that was it. It was one. It was like took 2 days from the casting to me realizing this is great.
Aw, how wonderful. Isn't it great to make your living and to be able to explore this other artistic side of you as you do your day jobs or whatever else comes to your plate? But it's great to have it as a fallback. I know how I feel about my music and performing, and when I produce, I love presenting talent, but when I'm on stage, it's a whole different ball of wax. It's just us with them, and that's a beautiful thing. Tell me about getting this from paper to Drew and then to your director, which you can speak a little bit about, to this production. What was that whole process like? How quickly did that happen?
Well, it started with Drew, to be fair.
Mhm.
It was his idea, and then we kicked it around. And then we set up some interviews, which I recorded, and then went back. And so our couple of interviews, I guess in the pandemic, Drew, and then like coming out of the pandemic. Is that right? The
Sounds about
timeline
right.
gets a little squirrely for me. I don't,
Yeah.
So we did these base interviews where we stream of consciousness, really like talk to me about, or how do you feel about, or can we discuss, and just kind of hung out and like let him spin these ideas and these thoughts about facing anxiety in these video games, which can become obsession is it's the buzzword, but it's also it's less. I find that the a video game obsession is part of it, but the show really focuses on avoidance of anxiety more than anything else. Which I don't know, Drew, if you agree with that, but as from a playwright's point of view, it's like trying to avoid stuff that is scary and stressful through the avenue of the game. And so letting us talk together as siblings, and I like to think that we trust each other really well. We know
Mhm.
each other pretty well. We trust each other really well. It goes, but interviews, sit and stew, sit and stew, sit and stew. And then I pumped the script out. I asked permission, like, can I just take a first draft? Because we were kind of thinking, like, how do we handle this collaborative experience, long distance? Do you mind if I just take a crack at this script, one draft, And I popped that out in 13 hours straight. It was all in there, and it was ready. It was just ready to go. And it's funny because it is my first play that I didn't write for myself. It's kind of a cheat because I know my brother really well. So I just kind of stepped into his brain. But it is the first time that I've put together on paper, a bunch of thoughts that have been, stewing up there and pinging around. And it took a couple of months to incubate. The writing was really quick. And then I sent over the draft. And when Drew looked at it, I hated the first ending, hated it. And so then we talked again and we retooled and adjusted and kind of went back and forth. We came to an ending that both of us could be okay with, which is a little more, it's not quite as Pollyanna. I wanted like a really positive, I'm a musical theater girl at heart, so I wanted a strong, solid, positive ending.
Drew doesn't do jazz hands, I take it. No, I'm just kidding.
He does, in fact, really well.
Not for this play, though.
For this. So
I think every
after
play
that,
needs a good shapoopy, right? Okay, shapoopy, we're done. Everybody go home.
yeah, and then he said no to that, and I went, okay, it's your show, so let's find a solution. And we came up with a much more sophisticated, less final, more amorphous ending, which really does speak to the anxiety journey and the facing of, and because I do write a lot of mental health focused
Mhm.
material,
Mhm.
that makes sense. And then
What's
getting it to
interesting
the
is we play
festival.
games to eliminate anxiety to some extent. We want to take a little break from our day because we're working on something. So, and then there's this other layer of how it now causes anxiety. And when do we stop? And oh, we get that extra 15 minutes because we hit the right ball or something, and then it just absorbs us. So, it's really a fascinating topic. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody dealing with it like this before. What about the script when you first read it did stick out, except for the ending, not you not liking the ending? What was it about the script that really spoke to you, Drew, when you got it?
Um, she, like she said, she kind of blasted it out quickly and
Mhm.
just like, let's just put it on paper. And I was really surprised at how, I mean, I mean, we had been talking, but like she said, she stepped into my brain and she
Mhm.
did a good job of that because there were some times that I was reading stuff and it just was like, wow, that's really good. That's
Mhm.
really, that's how that works up there. And, even like, yeah, like reading like a whole this big speech, and I didn't know what it was, but I kind of did it out loud, and it affected me even in the first read through. Like I was like I couldn't get through it all the way. I was like, man, she really just navigated my brain really well, maybe even better than I navigated myself.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, that goes to speaking of your simpatico as brother and sister too, I'm sure. But talk to me a little bit about your director, John. Is he someone you've worked with before? And what did he think when you brought this project to him?
Yeah,
I have,
he's a surprise.
yeah.
Yeah, John Lampy came to us as a recommendation from a buddy. So Drew lived, actually, we were roommates in the city for 7 years before he met his lady love and then moved west to start their life together. And so we have some crossover in the musical theater arena and did a couple of shows, in fact, together. We've done a bunch of readings. So we have some friends in common from back in the day, and one of them is a pretty successful playwright on his own, and also is a musical theater guy. His name is Brent Black. And so I think of Brent Black as being like my go-to for nerdy stuff. um, he was an old school YouTuber who did funny song videos about old, video game characters like Mega Man and Mario Brothers, and he's just a really nice guy. And so when this project came up, it was so video game focused. It was important for Drew and I to have a director, that we could hang out with and enjoy as a human,
Right,
right?
because it's
So
a
important,
process. Yeah, yeah.
like, and it's a one person, right? So it's a one person play. So it's like Drew really needed to like jive with the director guy. And he really had to understand game narrative. So
Hmm.
important because game narrative, I mean, the video game stories are extremely complicated. And so having somebody who was an avid gamer or who enjoyed that kind of understanding game lore was very important. And Brent said, "Oh, you should reach out to John Lampy. He's the best." And I went, "Cool." We hung out, we talked, and I said, "Gosh, he's lovely." He's so nice. I
He's
said
great.
to Drew, I said, I think you're going to like John. And then we had a meeting and then like a chemistry read, if you will, right? Because it's so important. If Drew's going to be the only guy, then he needs to really trust who's guiding him because it ain't going to be me, you know. I got enough to do. So I think, as a family, really are lucky that John Lampy was available, and he's got a lot of directing background and is also a performer. So he's juggling his own stuff and his own acting project in addition to directing our piece.
So just shutting this down because we do these fairly quickly. What is the thing that you're most excited about happening or seeing, or just showing up and realizing this is your baby? What is it about what's going to happen on January 23rd and the subsequent dates, January 28th, sorry, and the subsequent dates that you're really looking forward to the most?
This is the first time that like I've had a project for years that has existed and d developed even when we weren't like writing. It's still up here,
Mhm.
come up with like an idea, and then occasionally we would text her or call her and be like, "Hey, I've had this idea," just walking around. So after years, kind of like you said, we're gonna get to do it. And
Yeah.
I'm really, really excited to actually do this thing that for a long time it was just kind of fun to talk about and interview about and go over cool, human things that I go through and that we can, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we're doing it.
Mhm.
This is great. Yeah, so that that really is simple, and I just can't wait to do it.
How about you, Daryl?
Well, for me, I can't believe that I wrote it either, to be honest. I watch him perform. I listen to him read the work sometimes, or I'll hear him, rehearsing his lines, and it doesn't sound like something that I recognize. I know I wrote it, but it is absolutely a joint venture to tell this story in this way. My
Mhm.
brother is a really good performer. He says he's hasn't done it for a while, but it sounds like a lie to me. He's an excellent performer. He has played Broadway. He shares stories through his music for as his career. He's extremely good performer, and I'm excited to see him navigate this show and share it with the audience because it is, like you said, Sue, it is unusual to let a man talk about this kind of anxiety stuff
Mhm.
in this way and kind of wrap up these things that we used for anxiety prevention or anxiety management and have that clash and that conflict. And Drew's just so good. It's going to be a real pleasure for me to watch.
What's the dream? Do you have backers coming or any producers or press coming to these performances? What's the dream? If you can just glass ball it, genie lamp it, what would it be tomorrow or 1 year from now?
Well, the New York Theater Festival is one of the oldest festivals for new work.
Hmm.
And so truly, this is our dream for
Mhm.
now. We wanted to do it in a festival and give the piece a chance to breathe on stage and see it and let it exist. So
Mhm.
we're currently living the dream.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And being present in the moment, I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and then because it is a one-hander, it's basically a one person. We have a surprise at the end, but it is a one-person show for one actor. Yeah, it would be wonderful to see what other theater venues might offer new access and possibilities for the storytelling of this kind of digital play. It is I don't know, half the show runs in projection in the back. It's a video game that
Mhm.
comes to life. So yes, I mean, with different theater and different money and different access, we could reach a lot of people and share this kind of mental health message through this show somewhere else. And wouldn't that be wonderful and help heal the world in our small way?
Well, I'm a firm believer in naming and claiming it, which is why I asked the question, because I think once it's out to the universe, may it come back to you twofold. So I wish the both of you the best on this project. I'm thrilled that you contacted me, and I'm really happy that Nightlife Exchange is able to get this up for you and maybe get a few more bodies in to see this, what I know will be a remarkable show and amazing work on both your parts. I could not be prouder of knowing you and knowing that you're now a playwright added to that beautiful name of resume things that you do. And Drew, I'm looking forward to seeing your performance. I'll have to go grab my ticket, and so will you. The link will be right down below. So please join us next time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Drew and Dana, for being here. Dana, my friend is Dana Lorge, and I've been so good. I haven't called you Dana once. No, just as I'm saying goodbye to you. Okay, no, don't do it. And her name was spelled the same way. No one else
Oh,
calls themselves Dana, right? It's always
yeah.
Dana. But anyway, thank you both for joining us on this episode of Sue's Muse, and I couldn't wish you any more happiness or luck in this project. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Take care.